Hi, it's Rob from robnophoto.com with a quick review of the Massa 58mm wide-angle lens adapter 0.45 times that has macro as well. Now, if like me you've got your kit lens for your camera, this is my 350D and I've got the 18 to 55 lens on it. On a crop sensor body like the 350D, 400D, 500D, etc. 18 is pretty wide, but it's, if you times it by 1.5, which gives you the 35mm film equivalent roughly, we're looking at what, about 36mm. Which enables you to get a pretty wide field of view, but there might be times when you want an even wider field of view, when you want to get lots and lots of a particular scene in, especially if you want to get that kind of wide angle look for landscapes where you've got maybe a rock in the foreground and then you've got a view, say, of a seascape or something like that off into the distance. But wide-angle lenses such as the 10 to 22 Canon and Tamron and Sigmas aren't cheap at all. So one alternative is these little things, which are wide-angle adapters which actually screw on the front of your existing lens, and they're very cheap. This one cost me about a tenner, I think, and it also has a macro feature as well, which I'll show you in a minute. And the idea is you just screw these onto the front, and they take the lens and the light coming in, and instead of sort of taking it from here, they take it from here and bend it through and put it on. And I was a bit sceptical, to be honest. I thought, no, it can't be, that good. The idea of it just seems a little bit odd. But I have used close-up filters on my lenses, especially my film cameras, and I've had good results with them. So I thought, well, I'll take a punt. And what I did was I bought this one, and I also bought a telephoto one as well, a zoom one. But first, straight off the bat, I'll say the telephoto one, not very good at all. Didn't get very good results. Everything was very soft, contrast was gone, and the images just weren't really usable. But I've had lots of fun with this one. I think it's definitely worth having in my camera bag. Now, first off, to fit it, what I always do on my camera is I switch the autofocus off and switch it to manual focus. That way, as I'm screwing it on, I'm spinning the focus ring. I'm not fighting against the motor. If you've got more expensive lenses, you probably don't want to buy one of these, but you don't want to be fighting that motor, then all you do is you just screw it on, and all of a sudden we get this much wider angle of view from our camera. This one's a 58mm one to fit the 58mm filter thread. Obviously you'd buy the right one for your camera and lens combination. It'd be different for Nikon and Sony cameras and Pentaxes and Olympuses, but this one goes on okay, and what you'll see at the end of the video is some example shots. Now, because it's a 0.45 times, what that gives us is roughly kind of, if we said half again. So when we're at 18mm, it's given us a 35mm equivalent of roughly about 10mm. However, what I have found is that if you've got your wide-angle lens right at, say, 18mm, this vignettes quite badly. You do get very dark corners, and it's not a soft vignette. So I found that normally you get it at all the vignette disappears at about 22mm. So that would be the 35mm equivalent with the adapter on of roughly about 12mm. 14mm, which is pretty wide. That's a nice wide angle. Yes, you do get distortion in the corners, but that's what happens with ultra wide angle lenses. And hey, this thing costs less than £10, so what do you expect? But if you're in a situation where you need a wide angle because you can't back up very far, or you want a cheap way into the super wide angle world with massive depth of field as well, then this thing's definitely worth looking at. There's lots of different makes out there. And they're probably all much of a muchness, to be honest. I mean, I've been on eBay, and this is where I've got these from, and they all look very, very similar. Now, as I said, it also has a macro feature, and if you want to use the macro feature, all you do is screw the front off, put that to one side, and this is basically just a close-up lens. Screw that onto there, and then put my autofocus back on, and now I've got a close-up lens, and I've done some very nice close-up photos as well. What I really like about this is that with my particular lens setup, you know, I use the 18 to 55, and then I use the 55 to 250, which covers most focal lengths, and they fit nicely in my camera bag, my low pro bag. But by taking this relatively small and lightweight extra little bit of glass with me, for those situations where I can't get wide enough for the 18, I can't get far enough back to fit everything in, and I don't want to do a stitch in Photoshop, or I want to do some macro photography, this little thing here, which fits very nicely in the corner of my camera bag, gets me out of that hole and helps me out immensely. So for about a tenner, I think I might have got this one second hand actually, that's definitely worth it. And I'll say again, get the wide angle macro adapter, get the one that matches your filter thread size, so 58mm on this particular Canon lens, but don't bother with the telephoto ones. Telephoto ones are bigger, they screw on, they're heavier. It felt like it was going to damage my lens anyway, and the results weren't very pleasing. But this little 0.45 wide angle adapter from Massa, very good, does the job, and I've been very, very impressed. And I'd rather spend £10 on this than sort of £400 on a Sigma or a Tamron wide angle. There we go, that's Rob from robnonphoto.com. Thanks for watching.